Okay. Good morning, everybody. This is Alec Reno, your host for this session, and I can't thank you enough for coming to learn more about SchoolDoc. In general, I wanted to introduce you to Riley, and also Riley Nolan, who will be working with our schools and already is in some cases, but also to start by giving you a little background around this agreement, because I've been looking at or working with them or negotiating, having conversations with their founder, Dr. Michael Ambrose, for well over a year to come to this point, and I'm delighted that it has ended this way. I want to be sure that everyone knows that this agreement is being done under our business services umbrella, and that distinction means that it is available to all of our schools and college members. So this is one of those agreements that doesn't rest in the purchasing consortium with more limited participation capabilities. I also like to identify that in the homework I did towards the selecting to do an agreement with them, I certainly looked largely at the value of what they were doing in the context of their pricing, the relative simplicity of their business, the model that seems appropriate for schools of all sizes, but is also affordable for the smaller schools who need to integrate this into their work. It's my general feeling that it helps our schools deal with the wider range of students in different ways, their medical needs and issues. They're able to pay more attention to them, and that's all appropriate for the direction of the school's business. I'm also pleased to say that SchoolDoc now, having had this phase of what was originally a business designed to support the needs of camps, has almost 100 independent schools under their belt. So part of my reason for progressing with them over time was to help them and wait for them to develop adequate experience that we expect when we sign on with somebody good. So Riley, with that introduction, please take over and give everyone a sense of the product and what it can do for them.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks so much, Al, for setting this up and for the introduction. And thank you to the schools today for taking the time to check out the system. So to just give you a little overview of what we're going to be doing here, I'll give you a little background on the product in terms of the features that are available. And then I'm going to spend a little time taking you through a demo school so you can actually see what this would look like from the family's perspective, but then also from the staff perspective. We'll spend some time going over the different reporting options, sending messages, making health flag entries, giving medications. But to start off here, what I'll do is I just wanted to give everyone my contact information. So here at SchoolDoc, I'm happy to help with any questions that come up. Each one of these accounts is customized for your school. So we would need to understand the types of forms that you'd like to collect, what you're looking for in a software. But this is my contact information, so feel free to take a screenshot, write this down, but feel free to reach out to us. And again, this is Riley from SchoolDoc. And to start by just going over some of the general features that you're going to see today. So we started off as an electronic health record. We came from the camp space, but we actually work with over 1,000 organizations across the camps, schools, summer programs, traveling organizations, really anyone that needs to protect and store data on children's health records. So the forms are completely customized. We do have an optional online registration. I know for a lot of the schools, you already have something maybe for admissions. This would be more for like sports signups, after school, summer programs if you have it. Generally, the folks using this would be the school health staff, school nurses, clinic staff, but there's also some uses here for athletic trainers, directors, summer camps, registrars, and I'll touch on the different reports. So we have some standard reports that a lot of schools will use. For example, if you need an allergy report on all your kids or for kids in a specific grade, you can certainly get that out of the system. We also have some custom reporting. I'll spend a lot of time talking about the health log in terms of when a student comes to see you during the school day. This is where you're doing your incident tracking, as well as what it's like to give medications through the system. So just to get started here, and I'll jump right into it, and I'm going to leave some time at the end for questions as well. And Al, I'm sure you'll keep me on track with the time if I go over. But what we'll start with is the family side of things. So the screen that you're seeing currently, this is going to be the first screen that a family might see when they're logged into SchoolDoc. We can customize this completely with any direction that you'd like to give to families. We can call this a student profile, health profile. Maybe you want to give them some contact at the school for anyone that they want to talk to, dates that they should have the forms in by. Typically, we know a school is using a student information system or another system for admissions or grades or attendance. And we actually have technology partnerships set up with a few of them. So if you're using Blackbaud or senior systems, we actually have some integrations set up where when you're logged into Blackbaud, there's going to be a button there to click on SchoolDoc and log in. With Blackbaud and senior systems, we can have your roster automatically import. And typically what we'll do is we'll send a welcome email to your families saying, welcome to SchoolDoc. This is where you can go to complete your health forms. They'll be brought to this page to get started. They'll see the direction. And then on the right-hand side, you can see different forms here. So I'll go through and show you some examples, but these are going to be customized for your school, just in terms of whatever requirements you need. So completely different for each school. We'll see that some of these forms have a green check mark, others have a red dot. The red dot is an indication that the family has not yet completed all the required questions. And this is actually going to trigger automated reminder emails. These are really nice to follow up with the families, make sure they don't skip any questions. It helps you get a full, complete set of paperwork going into the school year. Just based on time, I'm going to do a brief overview. Please reach out to us if you have additional questions. We can do a more in-depth demo. I'm just going to give you a summary of what's possible here with the forms. As the family goes through, it saves automatically, so they're not going to lose their work. They can log out and come back, but just know those reminder emails are in place if they haven't completed it. I'll fill out an allergy here and a medication. So with allergies, we separate them into food, drug, and environmental allergies. So let's say that Christina here is allergic to peanuts. There's actually a drop-down menu to help them, and we have that in there to make sure that they get the spelling correct. It's our way to standardize it. And it'll ask if they have a risk for anaphylaxis and are they bringing an EpiPen. Go ahead and save that. I'm filling this out at this point because when I move to the staff side, I'll show you an example of running an allergy report. It's really easy to get that out of the system. Medications, we know this is another important area. So if they say yes to medications, we can go ahead and we can put in a medication here. You'll also notice a drop-down menu. This is actually pulling right from the FDA database, and the medication strength is synced up with the medication name. So another way to further standardize it. They'll indicate when they take the medication, so does the child take this at lunch or is it as needed? It'll require to tell you why they're taking the medication. Are they taking it at school? Go ahead and save that. This information that's entered is going to be automatically populated into the EMAR, the electronic medication administration record. So it's going to be a really easy to-do list for your staff. And I'll show you that when we jump over to the staff side. We also know a lot of schools are stocking over-the-counter medication. So you can have a custom list for families to say, yes, it's okay to dispense Tylenol to my child. This is completely custom, and it also ties into the health log. So when you're treating a student, if you want to give an over-the-counter medication, you can only give it based on these permissions. So it's a safety check in the system. Just to touch on a couple other forms before we switch over to the staff portal. I wanted to talk about immunizations because depending on the state that you're in, the type of school, you might have different requirements for immunizations. A few different ways to collect that info. So you can require that families upload a copy of their immunization record. Or you can have people put in the dates for the immunizations and whether it was received or not. So this list that you're seeing here, this is going to be completely customized for the school. And some schools will choose to have manual entry as well as the scan and upload, but completely up to you. Last tab that I'll touch on here is the authorization at the bottom. So we can have an electronic signature in the system. So if you want someone to sign and verify that everything's true and up to date, it stamps it with their name, the date and time that they sign. This is a legally binding electronic signature. we can have this show up on reports. So if you're running an emergency report, you need to have a permission to treat waiver signed. You can have it show up on that report. You can also take an electronic signature and put it on any of these other tabs. So if you have a photo release form, permission slips, they can sign those in the system as well. The only form really that would need to be handled as a scan and upload might be a physical form or any form that needs to have a doctor's signature. So what we'll do for those is you can have a spot for them to download it, and then they can re-upload it into the system. So this gray box here is a spot for them to upload a form. They can also take a picture with a smartphone and upload the photo that way. And this information that's entered, it saves from year to year. So it's really convenient for returning families. So going into the next school year, they don't have to start from scratch. Typically, a school will want them to confirm certain pieces of information or re-enter data. So we do have the ability, going into the next year, you can require that they update their allergies and their medications, maybe re-sign electronic signatures, but then they're going to be good to go for the next year. I also wanted to just touch on these dates here. So the due date is ideally, when would you like the families to have their forms in by? Typically for schools, this is going to be some point in the summer. The lockout date, this is going to be up to the school, but I recommend setting this maybe a week or two before school starts. This is the last date that a family can go in and change their forms once they've completed them. And that's a safety check in the system, so your staff can go through and review the information and know that no one's going to be updating or changing anything. From the family's perspective, they can request to have their account unlocked after a lockout date, but it's up to the school staff to allow them to make that change. So one other point here that I'll point out, down here in the left-hand corner, we have the Maple Academy branding. This is actually the school's branding that's going to show up on each page within SchoolDoc. So I'm going to switch gears here and move over to the staff side. So we looked at the family's perspective. How do they fill out forms in the system? Now we're going to switch gears, and this is going to be the page that your staff would see when they're logged into SchoolDoc. You can have as many staff in the system as you would need. There's no cost for staff access. And we also have an audit trail in the system. So what that means is that anytime someone gives a medication, makes a health log entry, reviews a form, there's going to be a record of what was done. So you can always go back and check. We also have quite a few different permission options in the system. So to give you an example, let's say that you have an upper school and a lower school, and you want to restrict a nurse to just the lower school. So when they log in, they can only see those students. You can set those types of permissions. You can also set permissions to make someone view only, so they can't change information. Maybe some of your health staff should be able to edit information, add new medications, but for some of the other staff, maybe you don't want that level of access. You can set those permissions. We also have administrative permissions versus medical. So especially for some of our schools that are using this for year-round, maybe for the summer programs, for after school, maybe there's a registrar, a camp director that needs to see the financial information in terms of the online registration, but they shouldn't see the protected medical information for the students. You can set up those types of permissions. On the left-hand side here, we have different staff tools. I'm going to start on this profiles page. In the center of the screen, we have a roster of our students. So we can see at a glance here their first and last name, their date of birth, and this percentage is actually showing how complete their forms are. So you can log in and see where they are in the process of getting everything back to you. On the right-hand side, this is our list builder, and this allows you to look at a more specific subset of students. And I'll show you an example here. Let's say that I want to see everyone that's a certain age. I can say, show me everyone that's 12 years of age. And then it just restricts it down and shows me those 95 students. You can add multiple conditions. So let's say that I need to see all the female students at the school that are 12 years of age. It further restricts it down, just shows me those 46 profiles. Whatever list you build here is going to carry over to the reports, these send message and power tools. And I'll show you an example that a lot of our schools use, and this is using a group select condition. The group select allows you to pick from your student structure. So this information would be completely customized for your school and is typically brought over from your student information system. So let's say that I want to see everyone that's in our lower school grade 4. I will select that group. It shows me those 73 students. And now I can click over to the Reports tab to run a report. Under Reports, we have standard reports. We also have a custom report builder where schools can create their own. Lots of different report options here. In the interest of time, I'm just going to show you a couple. So the first one I'll show you is an allergy report. You can export these as an Excel file or as a PDF. And I'll pull up this allergy report. Lots of other options here. We have a check-in, check-out report, which is great for field trips. If you need to just get all the emergency contacts out, you can certainly do that as well. We also have a report that allows you to just look at completion. So you can see at a glance everyone that's completed their forms and everyone that still has work to do. So I'm going to pull up this allergy report here. I pulled up a PDF just to show you an example. If you needed to print off this information and hand it to staff, this is a good example of that. So we have the basic demographic information, what they're allergic to, do they have an EpiPen, and just for that specific group that I asked for. Going back to the reports, I'll switch over to the custom report builder. So this allows you to pick from any of the questions that you asked your families, and you can pick and choose what shows up on the report. So that gives you quite a few different options, but just to show you an example in our demo account, let's say that we need dietary restriction information and allergy information, and we're generating this report so we can then send this off to the cafeteria or the kitchen. You can select those two things. You can save it as a template, and then from your saved templates drop down, you can go ahead and you can pick from your saved templates for easy access. Another great use for the custom report builder is you can select all. So this is a really easy way to select a complete student record for this group of students. And a good reason to do this is we encourage our schools to have downtime procedures. So in the case that you don't have access to internet or you lose power, you can still access the student records. So this gives you the option to download everything as PDF files or as a CSV Excel file, so you can easily access your data offline. SchoolDoc also never shares your data with third parties, and in the case you don't use SchoolDoc in the future, you can download your data. It's always available to you. Moving over to the send message feature, also attached to the list builder. Let's say that you need to send a mass email out to everyone for the grade 4 families that there's been a strep throat outbreak and you just want to give them an update. You can send it right from here. You can type it up, you can choose a file. You can actually have templates right here in the system. So if you send the same thing a lot, you can just have it stored, and this is going to really speed up the process and save you time. We also have a texting option. This is something new that a lot of our schools had asked for that we've added in over this past year. And this allows you to send a text message. There's a legal requirement that you have families opt into a service like this. So there would be an email where they would opt into this. There's a cost for schools of about 5 cents a message to send a text. So I'm going to keep moving here and just want to jump over, and I'm going to show you Christina Allen's profile, but more from the staff side. So what I'm going to do here is go back to our profile screen, and then I'm going to select Christina Allen's profile and bring that up. And then we're going to come back and we'll look at Power Tools. So you can search for a student's name. You can select their name here, and then it's going to show you their health form. So this is going to go through and show me everything that the family filled out. So I can look over Christina's forms and say, yes, this information looks good. Depending on my permissions, I may be able to edit this. If there's a photo icon, I can open this up and see additional info, so we can see the immunization record that was filled out. And down here at the bottom, we have this Review and Notes tab. This is here to help your staff go through and mark different parts of the forms as reviewed. These review types are completely customizable, so depending on what you need to check. So let's say that I'm looking over Christina's emergency contacts. Everything looks good. I'm going to mark that as reviewed. It stamps it with my name and the date and time that I reviewed it. The great thing about these review types are I can go back to my list builder and say, show me a report of everyone that I still need to review for emergency contacts. It just shows me that group. You can also have notes here. So we can go ahead, we can type up a note. It's like putting a sticky note on a student's file, completely confidential to your staff. If I click over to notifications, we can see a history of messages sent to the family. You can actually see if families are opening your emails. If it has a green check mark, it's an indication that the family has read the email. And we actually can see the date and time that they did so. And the gray circle is also important to know, means that they've not yet received it, and you can resend an email if needed. So the next two features I'll show you, I'm going to move over and I'm going to touch on the health log and then the EMAR. So these are going to be the two, from the staff point of view, more medical specific features. And for the health log, I'm going to start with a new entry. So this health log is tamper-proof. So what that means is that once I create this entry, I can't go back and delete it. You can add an addendum, but the reason for that is it's if no one can go back and completely erase the history of what was done, there's always going to be a record. And I'm going to start by putting in the name of a patient here. It'll put in the current date and time. You can change it if you're late charting. And then we go ahead and we can fill out this entry. The fields that you're seeing here, this is a SOAP note. So I'm sure the school nurses on here will be familiar with this from a hospital setting in terms of collecting the subjective information, the objective information, and indicating your assessment and plan. So those are the main fields that you're seeing here. Besides the SOAP note, you can add in additional criteria depending on why you're treating a student. So let's say that we take a student's temperature. It's now highlighted in green here, and we can add in a temperature value. To speed up the process, what we see our schools using a lot are templates. So what this does is this allows you to, let's say we have a student coming in that we suspect for a concussion. We can select the concussion template, and now it's going to prompt us with just the fields that we'd want to have in there to treat this student. You can even have text come up as well. So we have a bunch of questions that we might want to check on with this student. So definitely a way to speed up the process. We'll go ahead and we can submit this entry. A couple other things that I'll show you here is, let's say that we want to give an over-the-counter medication. We can go ahead and we can select an over-the-counter medication. It only allows me to dispense based on what the family gave permissions for. You can also set up follow-up visit. These are really helpful if you need to, let's say, check in with a student the next day or the next week. You can put in a date and time to see them, and you get a notification when that time comes. Moving to the main view of the health log, now we can see all our entries in chronological order here. And this allows for some great risk management. So you can filter your health log and you can look for data trends. So I'm going to say, let's look for students that came in for a similar chief complaint and everyone that came in for a sprained ankle over the past year. I can put in that filter. It shows me those 21 entries. You can also look at this information graphically. So if I move down to the statistics tab, I can actually change the date range, but you can see visits per day over time, different chief complaints, which providers are creating these entries, as well as locations. And you can actually put in custom locations so you can track where things are happening around your campus. We also have what's called triage mode. This is something that our schools had asked for and that we added in over the past few years. What triage mode is maybe you have a check-in station at the front door of your health center where a student or another staff member can check a student in. This allows them to put in their name and why they're coming to see you. And from triage mode, you can see a list of students waiting, and you can pick and choose who to see first. So it's just a way to triage that. If you have a busy health center, then this might be a good option. To move over to the EMAR, this is the electronic medication administration record. And this is going to be your to-do list of medications to give. It actually shows me by the nearest time of day. So if I'm logged in at lunchtime, it's going to show me my lunchtime medications. So we'll just switch to lunch so we can see this list. And we have our 4 lunchtime medications to give. As I go through and give medications, I click to give. It stamps it with my initials. So it's just another example of that audit trail in the system. We can also open this up and we can add additional notes. So we can see what the child's allergic to, what other medications they're taking. If we mouse over the first aid kit, we can see height and weight. We can also add notes here. So let's say that a student refused medication and it was not given. Go ahead and mark that. And you get an alert anytime a medication is missed. And one last thing that I wanted to touch on was for schools that may be interested in the online registration component, so maybe using this for after school or summer programs. What we do for that is we give you a link that you can put on your website where someone could click to register. That will bring them to a list of different sessions. This is just an example of some after school programs that we have going on at our fake school, where we could go ahead and we could sign up for a field trip or summer camp. We'll customize it with the dates and the descriptions, and they can register, they can add some add-ons, coupons, and then they can pay for these programs with a credit card or electronic check if there's a payment. And the nice thing about the registration feature is that once they've registered, they can then fill out any forms that go along with the program. It's all going to be synced up in part of SchoolDoc. So that gives us a broad summary. I'm just going to pause here and Al, do we have questions that have come in?
I think if there's anyone that would like to ask a question, you're welcome to unmute your phone and ask it. I have a couple, but Riley's not quite done. But that's a good time to take that break. Okay, Riley, hearing none, let's proceed.
Perfect. So the last couple things I wanted to touch on are more summary, and just to touch on the, I guess, the pricing for this. So the cost for SchoolDoc is $8 per student. That's per year. That's an annual cost. If you sign a multiple year contract, we reduce that per student rate. So if you commit to 2 years, we'll lower that to $7 per student. 3 years brings that to $6 per student. The way that we bill for that is we'd collect an initial deposit when you sign up with us, and then at the end of the school year, we'd send you a bill for any additional balance. The deposit goes towards your overall cost. That's going to be it in terms of pricing. We try to keep it really simple and straightforward. The cost is going to include everything in terms of setup, support, and training on our end. So just wanted to talk about what's available for our schools once you sign on. So you have a SchoolDoc account manager that will actually build out your account for you. So we'll collect the forms that we'd like included. As part of the process, we create a test account. And there's going to be a round of revisions where you're going through letting your account manager know what needs to be tweaked. Then once everything's good, we can open it up and let families start filling out the forms. In terms of support, we actually do phone and email support for your families as well as staff. So let's say that a family forgot their password, or if they need help uploading a document, they can actually give us a call and we'll help them out with that. And we do extended hours and weekend hours in the summer when families tend to be most active. In addition, we have a support site with frequently asked questions, how-to videos. That's a great resource. There's a portal for families and there's a portal for staff as well. And we always encourage for staff that they take part in at least one of our training webinars. We typically hear that the software is really intuitive and easy to use, but we do encourage people to take part in that so they can see the full extent of what's possible in the system. And then I'll talk about timeline a bit. So if you're looking to get an account set up, how long does it typically take? And generally, it's about 3 to 4 weeks for us to build the account. From when you say, yes, we'd like to get started, 3 to 4 weeks. It does depend generally on the forms that you'd like included. So if you have a lot of different programs with many different forms, we might need a little bit longer, but we'll always quote you a timeline as part of our conversation. And then I recommend that you give your families a bit of time to fill out the forms too. So in addition to the time that we need to create the account, giving your families at least a month to fill out the forms is definitely good too. Our general process is that we like to start building out an account for a school in the spring so that they can open it up for families towards the end of the school year, and that families can be active in the account filling out forms throughout the summer going into the next school year.
Riley, thank you. Is that it from your point of view? I have a few things to say and welcome any other comments.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a summary for me. So yeah, whatever questions you have there.
Okay. Well, thank you. I'm pretty subjective in saying that I think it was a great presentation and it is a great product. I had not looked at it in detail with you before, but I'm impressed with the extent of thoughtfulness and the different considerations that have been built into the product. I think it's a good example of what the marketplace is seeing for schools, where individual entrepreneurs are creating excellent and outstanding individual products for specific applications. The trick is they certainly need to have the interface capability with existing databases, because you don't want to be reinventing the wheel and rebuilding it all the time.
Oh, absolutely.
You mentioned, and we talked about previously in our preparation, the fact that you have built in a API connectivity already, sort of designed and built with Blackbaud and senior systems. And I think you indicated your willingness to do that with any school that has any other student information system that they're using now. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly right. So we have turnkey integrations with Blackbaud and senior systems. So if you're using one of those services, they're pretty easy to set up and really don't require much work on your end in terms of the director of technology or other folks getting involved. But if you're using another student information system, we know there's a lot out there, and PowerSchool and Veracross and some other ones. Or a custom system that maybe was built specifically for the school. We have what's called a public-facing API, and we're happy to share that with your team. That can be used to create additional integrations, and we're happy to provide that documentation.
Great. Thank you for confirming that. I want to go to your pricing for a moment and specifically address the pay-as-you-go pricing, where we always look in doing an agreement to create some additional value. I think it's important to confirm that there are no incremental implementation charges. Typically in a product like this, you might see that in the first year, one-time only kind of cost. And that is not true for SchoolDoc, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So we have our initial deposit, but it goes towards your balance, so no additional setup costs.
So given the per student pricing that this product and service has already, where I got stuck with Michael in negotiations was I won't do an agreement, or we won't do one without creating value in different areas. One in this case is pricing, because the product is already excellent and we can't look for enhancements particularly. So we negotiated, if you will, an allowance of 25% off of the first year cost of the product. And normally there's a $1,500 upfront deposit, which is kind of standard practice for them as a starting point. Riley mentioned that, and that requirement was waived so that a smaller school could implement it with, let's say, 25% off of that $1,500. So that's where it starts. When I first looked at this product, we had no customers in the Pays BOA group, so we could do nothing but help Michael develop this business and SchoolDoc, so that this was an appropriate arrangement for both of us, and I think it's one that will serve us well. Thank you for touching on the Riley on the timeline, because that's always got to be in people's minds when they take a look at something like this. How long is it going to take me to do it? And it does seem like the service options that you've set up and the service you provide to all parties involved in it is really excellent. I know I get a personal answer every time I've called out there, and that's some very fine companies that our schools work with, like SchoolDoc. Have implemented it and kept it to this day, no matter how large they are. I certainly want to keep it open for anyone else's questions or considerations. Please just unmute yourself and raise them as we consider bringing the session to a close. And we've been pretty good to our half an hour to 40-minute types commitment to all of you. Wow. Riley, when this happens, we always prefer to say, I guess we've addressed all the questions. That's a sign of a good presentation. But I
Absolutely.
want to thank you for your time. Let everyone know that we are recording the session, and it will be, as is our custom, posted along with little 3 slides in the presentation on our website. And the slides are there primarily so that anyone who is taking a serious look at this can contact you, Riley. I'm delighted to say that you are our representative for this purpose, and you'll be our primary contact. And so I want to thank you for participating in an outstanding session.
Yeah, thanks so much, Al. I really appreciate that. And yeah, any interested schools, feel free to reach out to us. I look forward to hearing more about the school and teaching all about SchoolDoc.
Thank you very much. I wish everyone a good day. This is one of my last acts as I move towards retirement. So I was very dedicated to doing this before I was gone. And I'm glad that Riley and everyone helped me accomplish that. So thank you for attending and have a wonderful day. Bye.